Oh, that's men shit. It's men. How you gonna bother a man and put in bullshit because people don't have food or people don't have the money? People fucking donkey. Woo! He did it! Did it! Man, driving, man. You're driving. You the man, son. But you didn't do it by yourself, nigga. You did it with the whole. He didn't do it by himself. He did it with all his friends taking turns. Fucking weirdo, like. When you were doing yourself, you did it with your teammates. How many hours? How many hours? How many days? Days, 100 hours, 8 times, man. You say that shit all the time? How many days? How many days? How many hours? How many days it took you? How many hours? 3 times, motherfucker. So hungry.
Confused. I'm gonna just go into the game, see?
How many days?
Wait.
How many hours?
You've been granted a max prestige ribbon and may now level up to level 1000. All gameplay content remain unlocked. Continue to level up to earn stars for your ribbon and more rewards. W! What's up there? W! Come on! W!
You're watching a toothbrush for Billie Eilish.
How many days? How many hours? 3 times. You understand
There are all kinds of sergeants in the United States Army, good ones, bad ones, strict ones, relaxed ones, all sorts of different types of sergeants that you possibly could have, will have, did have, do have, whatever in the United States Army. And I've got 10 different examples of types of sergeants that I want to inform you about. What's up, my friends? U.S. Army veteran Christopher Chaos, and we're talking about some different types of sergeants. Maybe you've experienced them, maybe you want to know what different ones to look out for. There's some good ones, some bad ones, all sorts of ones. And of course, there's more than just the 10 that I'm going to talk about. There's some examples of different types of sergeants that maybe even you have had, type of thing, and I want to hear about it in the comment section down below. So make sure to let me know what are some types of sergeants that you have experienced or seen. Before we get into the first one, smash that subscribe button. You gotta be subscribed and click on the bell and all that fun stuff. Be a part of that notification platoon. That way you don't miss any other videos about the United States Army to help you out. Whether you want to join, you're currently in, or you're a veteran and you want to get entertained with what's going on in the Army, hit that subscribe button. So let's get into the first one on my list of 10 different types of sergeants. First one is an easy one to kind of cover. That's the buck sergeant. You may have heard that term. Maybe you're someone who's in the Army and you've heard that term. That is a brand new sergeant. These are your type of sergeants that probably, E5, we're going with. I mean, because some of these could be like E6s or E7s or whatever, but this one's probably an E5 sergeant. So you're early, new to being a sergeant. You graduated, your school, your NCO academy, you made points, and now you're new sergeant, so you're getting your feet wet with what it's like to be that non-commissioned officer. These people are usually pretty new, so they don't know the ropes exactly yet, so it's still kind of new to them. They probably still have some friends that are like specialists and privates and everything, and they're trying to kind of disconnect from it because technically not really allowed to. They probably still do, which is pretty common kind of thing, but not really supposed to hang out with those individuals, but they probably still have a lot of friends that are still specialists and everything. They're making some common mistakes because they don't know the ropes yet, they don't know how to do things properly, so they get cut a little bit of slack because they are a buck sergeant, they're a brand new sergeant, but they gotta learn from those mistakes and they gotta improve from that. But also the sergeants that probably get stuck with some of the crappier stuff, right? You gotta do CQ, you need an NCO for CQ, you need an NCO for staff duty, they need receiver.
That's not what I'm looking for.
You're fine.
But, man, Toya, I'm trying to came up with you, bro.
I hit you for it. I hit you with it.
But,
You put it up. Yeah, you can play the same.
go, let's go, let's go. Roll it, let's go. Let's go, let's go.
But something saying, I could be wrong. I don't play server issues on Tuesday. So it's not a server issue, it's just server maintenance, but yeah.
Go!
We gotta go through the bathroom here. This should be illegal. He's on the area.
We're setting up the bomb.
He's going towards the back spawn now, so he's going to get through that one.
Get serious, Crimson.
How much top?
Napalm strike standing by.
Spawning's safe now.
Set.
Nice.
Hit them again before they mount the counter-offensive.
Oh, this gun's absurd. Give me the rapid fire on it. Give me the rapid fire on it. I know one thing. My controller end should not be better than my mouse and key and how much I fucking play mouse and key. I play way too much mouse and key to be ass. There's a lot of people going A. I'm very scared.
What happens when you eat too much eggs? That don't feel good. Man, too much eggs.
You're on a roll, Crimson.
Couldn't go where my melee buttons were.
Yo,
I got a streak. Maybe give us a UAV perhaps if you're interested.
You could set these little system at
How are you gonna be? Oh, okay.
I would have died.
I have an Archangel, I guess when you use it, I'm not gonna fucking die using it. First time ever, not dying with it. Hey, yes, Kelly, no, he's not. You're good. Hey, Archangel, firing. Did it kill me? I'm not sure if they got you. He's at full or he's down low? I'm not sure which. He's by me. I got a pulse. Oh. Alright, we use really loud actually. So loud, yeah. Jetty's pretty helpful. Here's the ID. Oh my god. That's a lot of fucking people there. It's all one below. Oh, what? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I was wondering if I was out there. I got him in the secret set of half the chamber. I'm really digging this SUV. It's in two different. He drops down right there.
Nice, T.B.E.
Casual 86L that I almost had nothing to contribute to. My goodness, you guys are gamers. 21-0. I had a pretty nutty round two. I I like fought off 4 players who were fighting me. Using like really cool flashes. Their sons and stuff. I one bursted like everybody.
Feels good, huh? Even hit fire, it's still somehow all shots dead.
All right, can everybody hear each other? Hello? Get your ass out of that window. Don't do it, Panther. Hey, Bugs. Join the,
Oh, people, yeah,
Bugs, join the, party. Join the, private channel.
Nah. I'm about to go do my thing, man. I'm about to invite my brother and go play with my crew and shit. I just want to see if you're okay. Right. If you want to come through. When you're not busy later, you come through, see me. You getting ready? I'm gonna smoking a blunt and all that and shit. Who is this? Oh, Demon? Was that Demon talking to me? I'm about to get in the game right now. Big Bean. Big Bean. You should invite the people. Here comes. Whoa! That's hot. Backed out. You my friend? Friend request. Texas God. I'm gonna need some music, man. This shit goes so fast. He plays chord. He plays chord.
Yeah.
Play chord.
15 kills. Shotzi to remove.
Captain, whatever. I don't know, man.
Play chord. Man, he plays hardcore.
You're watching YouTube, but did you know there's a YouTube Music app where you can listen to rare covers of your favorite artists? Duh. Get YouTube Music Premium.
Get a hop in the air.
Yeah. Okay. That's the key. Ooh.
Come on, front of house.
Enemy spotted.
Okay. They'll cover me. K1, you still here? K1? Unbelievable, bro. Unbelievable. If you still here, it takes time. How the fuck you spell private? Nigga, I'm not a private nigga. I'm a sergeant. Oh, okay, I get it. Motherfucking sergeant. Definitely gonna need some motherfucking people who's watching Training Day. I do not watch Training Day for nothing. That's a classic movie. Training Day, you don't watch that. There's no Washington, you don't. I mean, you can watch, but don't watch it over and over and over. Who's hungry? I'm hungry. Hit you with the lungs, this, that. Get that shit out of here. PCP and this and that. This is Victor upstairs. Y'all into the same thing. Like, y'all sick. Y'all not sick. Y'all, something is wrong with y'all. Y'all not living a happy life. Y'all not happy with yourself. You see? Okay, there's no Washington. Training Day. What else? Let's look another one that you watching. Predator movie. Let's watch another one. The Dark Knight Rises. Let's watch another one. They watching upstairs. Apollo Creed, Rocky V. Let's watch another one. A guy working out, how the warrior heals his. Let's watch another one. This boring. Boy, you're being corny. You're being not the man. You're being something that you mad at life. You mad at God. If you God killer, then why you mad at God? Stop sending videos over here, man. I'm not into that. They into stuff that is not important. Like you going this way. You trying to make things about y'all upstairs. Like the people upstairs is crying. They like donkeys. They want attention. Yeah, I want to hear my thing. I was listening to it, and then they put all this bullshit on YouTube. I'm not watching this. We're not into this. We are not into this. You understand? Come on, man. I have no time, man. This time goes fast, yo. Hearing the most of the rant and joining the army. Oh nah, man. Oh come on, we had that shit yesterday. What's the name of it? G-E-A-N-T something. Whoa.
Sustainability and data storage should be built in, not just slapped on. Yet, here we are, overloading electrical grids to underwrite AI projects. With Pure Storage, AI can power the business without overpaying for power. Data at your service.
This is what I'm into. This is what I'm into. We're different. Come on, positive vibes, man. All that shit, living off of other people, living off of avocado, and these females living off of anything just to survive and just to pay rent. Our old man upstairs, and Living up. Come on, bro. It's a man in here, a real man.
Less, but there are still some basics that every sergeant should be potentially doing or would be doing. I guess it kind of just depends on your unit a lot of times, but I want to talk about the things that you should expect to have to do when you're a sergeant in the Army. I, of course, was a sergeant in the Army. I did a lot of these tasks. I worked my way up, and got into different tasks as a sergeant and all sorts of things, but I kind of want to give you a general understanding because maybe you're someone who wants to join, maybe you're someone who's already in, and at some point in time in your Army career, you want to get to the rank of a sergeant, you want to know exactly what to expect. Maybe you're even just an outsider that is kind of curious about this kind of thing. So let me try to dive into that and try to give you a good common understanding as to what exactly that sergeant does. Now, this is just your common type of thing. Of course, there's probably some crazy circumstances where someone has stories where they're like, oh, as a sergeant, all I ever did was drive vehicles and that was it. I drove for the command sergeant major, or I worked in an office or whatever. And sure, there are some cases where it's going to be like that, but there are some basic NCO sergeant type of tasks that should be happening, should be done so that you can progress in your Army career. And that's what I kind of mainly covering. If you don't know what a sergeant is, that is the pay grade of an E5. That is a non-commissioned officer, otherwise sometimes referred to as an NCO. The NCO, the sergeants, they are the backbone of the Army. At least that's what the NCO Creed says. As far as the NCO Creed goes, yes, you should know the NCO Creed when you are a sergeant prior to becoming a sergeant, because you're probably going to get drilled on it before the promotion board. At the promotion board, they're going to drill you on the NCO Creed, and you're going to have it memorized. Later in your NCO career, is it very important? It kind of varies. Some units might be pretty strict on it, where they may drill you occasionally here and there, and then if you don't recite the NCO Creed properly, maybe they make you drop and do some push-ups even as a sergeant or whatever, they make you memorize it, but some units don't really give a crap, and they only really care about it when it comes to like the board, the NCO's month board, or certain other kind of circumstances. But now let's kind of get into some of the basic responsibilities of an NCO as a sergeant. Especially for like you viewers out there that are not yet in the Army. I kind of want to try to break it down in a way that hopefully you'll kind of understand using maybe some kind of civilian type of analogies or civilian type of example. So let's say like in the example, just your generic grocery market, all right? You have a grocery store, that sells groceries, maybe electronics, whatever, right? You have your cashiers, you got people that have to stock the shelves, people have to mop the floors, people have to greet people when they come into the store. That, in that example, is kind of like your enlisted soldiers. They are the ones doing the job for whatever the MOS is, and kind of the ones getting their hands dirty and doing all the specific jobs in that unit.
Upstairs. Fuck off, you faggot. You trying to make everything about y'all. Get the fuck away from me. Get the fuck away from me. You want me to complain about you. Earn your shit. Stop listening to my shit. Go watch a movie. Go watch the fucking, some college football. Get the fuck away from me. Fucking trash can. That you gotta be yelling on TV while the next man is not yelling. I wish that's Victor up there. If that's Victor up there, I'ma scream on you. I'ma scream on you, Victor. I'ma scream on you.
Market. So they have their set tasks they have to do, and then you have the managers in that store, which in this case, maybe they're the NCOs in this kind of analogy, right? You have your managers that have their type of job, and at the Army level, at the units, you have your NCOs that kind of have like a manager type of job. So with that manager at that grocery store, right, that manager may still sometimes work the cash register, stock some shelves, but they still have the overall picture of making sure that those people that are responsible for like stocking the shelves, operating the cash register, mopping the floors.
And yo, upstairs, they put a letter on the fan. Like, whoever's upstairs, if there's people upstairs, they don't come outside. Like, everybody come outside. You see all the letters, they took them in. And upstairs is like, they just waking up, going to sleep, like, you living off my name, bro. You're like a leech. You're a loser. You tell me somebody upstairs living off my name, bro. You're a leech. You're shit. You're a piece of shit. Fuck you watching over here. Fuck you listening to my Army shit. Go get your own. Be a man. Fucking bum. You tell me somebody's up there, yo? I'm gonna scream on you.
Understanding. Think of your sergeants as the managers in this case. Now, when you first start off as a sergeant, a common position that you will take up is what is called a team command sergeant major, or I worked in an office or whatever. And sure, there are some cases where it's going to be like that, but there are some basic NCO sergeant type of tasks that should be happening, should be done so that you can progress in your Army career, and that's what I mainly am covering.
If you don't know what a sergeant is, that is the pay grade of an E5. That is a non-commissioned officer, otherwise sometimes referred to as an NCO. The NCO, the sergeants, they are the backbone of the Army. At least that's what the NCO Creed says. As far as the NCO Creed goes, yes, you should know the NCO Creed when you are a sergeant, probably prior to becoming a sergeant, because you're probably going to get drilled on it before the promotion board. At the promotion board, they're going to drill you on the NCO Creed, and you're going to have it memorized. Later in your NCO career, is it very important? It kind of varies. Some units might be pretty strict on it, where they may drill you occasionally here and there, and then if you don't recite the NCO Creed properly, maybe they make you drop and do some push-ups even as a sergeant or whatever, they make you memorize it, but some units don't really give a crap, and they only really care about it comes to like the board, the NCO's month board, or certain other kind of circumstances. But now let's kind of get into some of the basic responsibilities of an NCO as a sergeant. Especially for like the viewers out there that are not yet in the Army. I kind of want to try to break it down in a way that hopefully you'll kind of understand using maybe some kind of civilian type of analogies or civilian type of example. So let's say like an example of just your generic grocery market, all right? You have a grocery store, you know, that sells groceries, maybe electronics or whatever, right? You have your cashiers, you got people that have to stock the shelves, people that have to mop the floors, people that have to greet people when they come into the store. That, in that example, is kind of like your enlisted soldiers. They are the ones doing the job for whatever their MOS is, and kind of the ones getting their hands dirty and doing all the specific jobs into that unit, in this case, a supermarket. So they have their set tasks they have to do, and then you have the managers in that store, which in this case, maybe they're the NCOs in this kind of analogy, right? You have your managers that have their type of job, and at the Army level, at the units, you have your NCOs that kind of have like a manager type of job. So with that manager at that grocery store, right, that manager may still sometimes work the cash register, stock some shelves, but they still have the overall picture of making sure that those people that are responsible for like stocking the shelves, operating the cash register, mopping the floors, are doing the job and doing it correctly. So especially if that manager maybe is, you know, stocking some shelves because they're helping out to get the job done and everything like that, but that manager sees that, you know, the cash registers are getting overwhelmed, then they may go and get another employee to go man one of the other cash registers. And that's kind of similar to how it might work in the Army as well. You might have a non-commissioned officer, that sergeant, that is doing something in the motor pool, working in a certain area, but there's another area that's kind of getting a little overwhelmed and needs a little bit more support, so they grab some more soldiers to go help out in that area. So nonetheless, you're essentially like a manager as an NCO, right? There's a little bit more kind of responsibility that goes along with it, but just trying to give a general kind of understanding, especially for someone who's not yet in the Army and wants to kind of have a good understanding. Think of your sergeants as the managers in this case. Now, when you first start off as a sergeant, a common position you will take up is what is called a team leader. Team leaders may have 3 soldiers they're responsible for, maybe a few more than that, but usually not too many soldiers at the team leader level. Now, your team leaders could be a corporal or a specialist, but we're using this example of being a sergeant as that is more of the preferred common team leader role. But in units that are maybe short on personnel, then you may have situations where a corporal or a specialist is a team leader. But in an example of a unit that is good to go, fully strength the way they should be, then you commonly got your newer sergeants that have only been a sergeant very new or only recently, whatever. Those individuals are usually tasked to be those team leaders. Now, I also want to kind of show you how that might fall in a formation. So you have your platoon formation, and depending on your role in that platoon, kind of usually determines where you fall into that formation. So we're going to come over here and we're going to take a look at an example of a platoon formation. Okay, so we're going to be looking at an example here that I've got. This is not actually a platoon formation, but we're going to kind of use it as an example of a platoon formation. I think it's actually like some kind of special ceremony, so it's a mixture of ranks and individuals and stuff, but it still gives me a good kind of picture to show you guys to explain how a platoon formation would work, to give an idea as to where that sergeant would go when you are in that position in that platoon. So usually at the front of that formation, you're going to have your platoon sergeant. That's usually like a sergeant first class, in some cases maybe a staff sergeant, but the platoon sergeant is going to be at the front. At the back of the formation, you also have your platoon leader commonly too, but let's talk about kind of the soldiers in the actual formation itself. So you have the different squads, right? Maybe you have first, second, third, and fourth squad. Let's say that's a pretty common example, is usually having like 4 squads, but depending on the unit, it may kind of vary, but let's say you have 4 squads. So at the very end of each of these formations, so this individual over here, this would be your squad leader, your section sergeant, along those lines, the highest ranking individual, the person that's in charge of that entire squad. So that would be a higher ranking person for that particular squad, the one that's in charge of that squad. In some cases, that's a staff sergeant. Sometimes that's just a sergeant. Like in the case of my last platoon in 410 Cav, we were only authorized 1 staff sergeant for our entire platoon. So that was the fuel section, and that was, I think, actually first squad. So the first squad leader, first section sergeant for the first squad was actually a staff sergeant, and the other ones were E5s who were sergeants. So squad leader, and then the E5, your team leaders in this case, we're going to say, are usually the person to the left of that individual. In this case, we're looking at this way, so it's to the right. But this individual, and maybe if there's a second team leader, that's pretty common, have two team leaders. So these two individuals would be your team leaders in this example that we're kind of using. So you'd have your team leaders, and then the rest of the soldiers kind of fall in inside the squad, a lot of times in order of rank type of thing. You usually don't get too like in depth with like, well, I got promoted on the 1st of June and you got promoted on the 1st of May, so I go in front of you kind of a thing. No, sometimes they do, but a lot of times just specialists and then PFCs and then privates, and then at the very end would typically be the lowest ranking soldier in that squad. That's a fairly common way that a lot of people do it. Not everybody does it that way, some people don't care, but usually at the minimum, you usually have your squad leader at the very end and then the team leaders next to that individual. So that's usually in the formation wise where that sergeant, might fall in this case, if they're a team leader, into the team leader spot. If they're, also, if they end up being the section sergeant or the squad leader, then they might be the very far end person. So hopefully that makes sense as far as kind of where you might fall into the formation when you are a sergeant, when you're a team leader kind of a thing. And by the way, if this is the type of content you want to learn about because you want to learn about the Army, you're in the Army, you're just curious about the Army, whatever, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Do me a favor and make sure you click on that bell as well so you can join the notification platoon, so that way you get alerts when new videos go live, to include the live streams. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers before the end of 2021, so help me make it happen. Now let's get back into it as far as the role and job of a sergeant. So diving a little bit more into kind of their job and their role. As I said before, they're kind of like a manager, right? So let's say an example of like working in the motor pool. A lot of people work in the motor pool no matter what your MOS is, right? Even your 11 Bravos probably have some kind of vehicles that they are responsible for. If they're in a certain type of infantry type of unit, sometimes they don't have any vehicles and maybe only have one vehicle. But your AD mics, your cooks sometimes, whatever. A lot of people have vehicles. So the motor pool is pretty commonplace for a lot of MOSs. Maybe you only have one truck and multiple trucks. But a lot of times there's still tasks that have to get done in the motor pool. So using that as an example, right? You're down in the motor pool, you have multiple soldiers that have tasks that they have to do. So this kind of get divvies up, right? You are a team leader, so maybe you're in charge of one specific task that's going on in the motor pool, and it's your job to oversee it and make sure that it's being done properly, safely, all of that. Now, sometimes that does mean just simply standing there and I guess supervising the soldiers doing work, and a lot of times that feels really weird to especially new sergeants, right? You're used to being the one getting your hands dirty and doing the work, and now you're standing there watching and supervising, and it feels kind of like you're being lazy, or it feels like, you're not really participating, and you can still kind of help out, but you still need to make sure you have eyes on the big picture. So the key thing with that is, sure, if your task is, let's say you're supposed to be getting all this equipment laid out for an inspection, the commander's gonna be coming through and inspecting everything or whatever. So the soldiers are getting all the equipment out of the vehicles, out of the connex, out of the container, whatever, getting it laid out so it can be inspected, and you're making sure the soldiers are grabbing the right things, getting it laid out. You can help. That's not to say that you can't do so, but you got to make sure that it's done right. You can't get so focused on wanting to be that person that helps out and not just stand around, because if you get so involved with helping and you get to the point where there's not enough work for everybody doing stuff and you're kind of busy moving.
He's funny. Everything.
moving stuff around and doing things, and then you got some privates that don't have anything to do, so they're standing there watching you work, then that's kind of the wrong answer. They should be getting their hands dirty, and if you're doing the work and they're watching you, you're taking away their experience. They should be getting their experience of whatever the job is. You know, if it's something as stupid as just laying equipment out, still, it's part of the process of going through being in the Army, of getting your hands dirty and going through the motions and everything like that. Whatever the task is, those younger soldiers need to make sure that they are into the mix and in there, getting that experience, getting their hands dirty, and you are making sure they're doing it correctly, and you can help
unless
them,
I'm fucking high.
Don't lose sight of the overall picture. But sometimes it does mean to simply stand there. There's not enough work to go around, that there's not enough for you to be able to, you know, help out and do. So sometimes you just have to just kind of just stand around and kind of make sure they're doing it properly. But you can help out. Just don't get too carried away with it, and don't get to the point where you're doing all the work and all the privates are watching you do the work and they're not getting experience now. Another kind of role as a sergeant is to kind of mentor those younger soldiers. Sometimes it's teaching them a class. So you might have this thing called sergeant's
I'm gonna have to back out.
Army.
I'm gonna have to back out start again. I don't see nothing.
Come back in a lot of units, and I'm seeing now that they're starting to participate more in sergeant's time training, but that really just depends on the unit. But whether you're doing some classes maybe during sergeant's time training, or just finding some dedicated time to be able to mentor the soldiers and educate them, that is the role of that sergeant, that NCO, is to teach them something. Sometimes it's things they already know, but it's just kind of ensuring that they're confident with their skills in that task. Some common things, like, for example, like when I was a section sergeant, where I had 2 team leaders under me that worked with me, and we would do the sergeant's time training or some dedicated training time, and I would ask them, be like, hey, what is your strengths? What do you feel like you would be pretty knowledgeable on to be able to teach these soldiers to practice and keep up on their skills? And like, I had one that was really good with radios, with, you know, loading the radios, fixing the radios, operating the radios and everything. So I had that NCO do a little 1-hour class with our soldiers to teach them all about radios. So that should be something those NCOs are doing, those sergeants are doing. That's even part of like the NCO Academy. When I went to the NCO Academy, I'm pretty sure it's still part of it, is that we had to give a class on something just to kind of build that confidence and learn kind of the skills of how your mannerism should be, what you should be doing as an NCO, as someone who is teaching soldiers something. So you would teach a class. A lot of times it's a class on something you already know, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have to do your homework and you have to research it really well and really in depth. You know, I've had times where I had to teach a class on something I was not very familiar with, and really get studied up on it to make sure that the portion of that, whatever it was that I was going to be teaching, I knew that well enough to be able to teach the soldiers what I've learned and kind of let them be able to practice that. Kind of an example of that is like, I was pretty new at having a motorcycle license and everything like that. I had recently gone through the motorcycle safety course that you had to go through when I was in the Army. I think they still kind of require it, but I had newly gone through that.
Like,
I had a motorcycle, but I wasn't very familiar with, you know, riding a street bike or a motorcycle. And I got tasked to end up giving a safety class on Friday to a bunch of soldiers for
What the fuck?
Someone who is teaching soldiers something, so you would teach a class. A lot of times it's a class on something you already know, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have to do your homework and you have to research it really well and really in depth. You know, I've had times where I had to teach a class on something I was not very familiar on, and I make sure to do my homework and really get studied up on it to make sure that the portion of that, whatever it was that I was going to be teaching, I knew that well enough to be able to teach the soldiers what I've learned and kind of let them be able to practice that. Kind of an example of that is like, I was pretty new at having a motorcycle license and everything like that. I had recently gone through the motorcycle safety course that you had to go through when I was in the Army. I think they still kind of require it, but I newly gone through that.
We don't have no problems.
But I wasn't very familiar with, you know, riding a street bike or a motorcycle.
Game don't get messed
and
up.
I got tasked to end up giving a safety class on Friday to a bunch of soldiers for motorcycle safety. I wasn't super skilled on riding a motorcycle or anything like that, but it was pretty easy just to basically look up the information, find the knowledge that, you know, would be good to, you know, give out to those soldiers, and making sure that, you know, those individuals are being safe and everything like that. Put together a little slideshow, and bam, you got a little nice little, it was like a 30-minute class on motorcycle safety. So presented that and try to be as knowledgeable as possible from what you can learn. If it's something you already know, then it makes it a lot easier, but if it's not, you gotta make sure you do your homework sometimes. Now, a couple more things, you know, that you have to do as an NCO to maybe get into, but definitely make sure that you have any questions or anything like that, drop those down in the comment section. If you don't really have any questions, then help me out and feed the YouTube algorithm. Maybe comment how many views does this video have when you're watching it.
I think
See
something's wrong,
which people are here really early, which people are here a little bit later on in the lifespan of this video.
That
but
happens,
comment
man.
with your questions. If you don't have one, let me know how many views are currently on the video right now. Another thing that's very common that NCOs and sergeants will have to do is counseling.
That kid joined.
I know some of my
even
experienced
last
NCOs
waiting.
maybe cringe at that word.
Imagine when he fight somebody who's hard.
But it's something that an NCO has to do, and
you're gonna be like, yo, he's on the left.
To be
you're gonna look to your flex. You're gonna be like, yo, this nigga hat, yo.
So this is a specific form that you have in the Army called a counseling statement. It's a DA.
That's how you know when somebody is real, Google. They stay
and they wait. Example here on the screen to kind of show you what it looks like, but it's
wait this long,
there
nigga?
For the soldier's name, for their rank, the
you always make a nigga wait.
What unit they're in, the date of the counseling,
exactly
whoever it was to give counseling, and then it has a couple other main blocks below that.
You ain't waiting.
You then have an area for the type of counseling, because there's multiple types of counseling. You may have heard me reference the word counseling when someone gets in trouble, but counselings don't always mean that it's something from someone being in trouble.
I'm ready.
An NCO and a sergeant should be giving out like an initial counseling. That's a basic counseling to lay out to that soldier what their responsibilities are, what their kind of, objectives are to, succeed in the Army, what that NCO expects of them. So when an NCO receives a new soldier, whether that's a brand new soldier from AIT, from OSID, or just a new soldier from another unit, from another platoon, whatever, you should be giving them that initial counseling so they know where they stand and what their expectations are in that squad. From there, you do have negative counselings, right? If someone messed up, did something bad, then you got to outline what they did, right? So you're giving them a negative counseling, and then in that main area right there is where the bulk of things go as far as the bullet points for maybe what it is they did bad, if there's initial counseling, then what their expectations are of them. But then there's also the monthly counseling. Those are the horrible ones that everybody always dreads a lot of times. So every month, you got to counsel your soldiers on monthly counseling, and that should be done at a monthly level. It's really up to the higher leadership to kind of enforce it and make sure that's happening, but it should be happening at a monthly time frame for the younger soldiers to know where they stand, what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. Because that's the point of that counseling for the monthly counseling is for that sergeant in the team leader and the squad leader position to be able to outline to that soldier, hey, you're doing really good in these areas. I would like to see you improve in these areas. I have these goals for you that I would like to see you do. Whatever. It's kind of outlining both the positive and the negative of that soldier. That way they know what they're doing wrong, what they're doing right, what they should be doing, all of that. Now, commonly, like in a position of you have a section sergeant or a squad leader, and that squad leader has maybe 2 team leaders. That team leader has maybe 4 soldiers each, then that team leader is responsible for those specific soldiers, those 4 counselors. So they take care of it. Squad leaders probably work their way up to that position, done their dues of writing counselings, and now it's on those 2 team leaders to be responsible for the counseling for those soldiers. Commonly, that squad leader might be checking those counselings and make sure they do it done properly, before they present it to the soldier, and make sure they outline stuff, didn't miss anything or whatever. And then it's a one-on-one session with that sergeant and with that soldier. So that is usually a private session.
Come on, nigga.
Maybe going inside of a room, outside somewhere, away from everybody else, where that sergeant can just discuss that counseling statement with that soldier for whatever reason it's for. So they go through it, they discuss it. It should not be a thing.
Put it that fucking sign.
In that counseling statement, let the soldier read it, and then have any questions, sign it, and whatever, and then move on. No, it should be kind of outlining it together. A lot of times the NCO has a copy, the soldier has a copy, and that NCO is kind of going through it to make sure that the soldier understands what they're saying in that counseling statement. Have any questions, go back and forth, whatever, and then once you have that discussion to kind of convey to that soldier what your point was and everything, then have them sign. As a sergeant, you're still kind of getting counseling from higher up. They're not counseling statements anymore, though. They're getting NCO yards, maybe that's a topic for another time, but kind of in a similar way, it's outlining what you've done great, what you've done bad, whatever you need to work on, all that kind of stuff. But NCOs no longer really receive counseling statements, they receive NCO yards. They still get counseling statements if something bad, but it's a monthly time frame thing. I don't think it's monthly anymore, but you have those NCO yards where you get those to let them know where they're at and what level they're on. Now, one last thing that I'll kind of mention in here, there's many things that an NCO does, and this would take forever to explain everything that a sergeant does in the Army, but another key one you want to do as a sergeant, probably as a corporal, is NCOPD. NCOPD stands for Non-Commissioned Officer Professional Development, so that is a way for you to develop as a leader, develop as an NCO, and get better. This sometimes can happen like once a month, sometimes it can happen very rarely. It really depends on the unit as far as how much they're implementing it. I think the Army wants you to do it like once a month, but that doesn't necessarily always happen that way. But the NCOs should be doing that NCO PD at some kind of frequent level where you have usually a senior NCO with maybe like a sergeant first class, maybe it's the first sergeant, whatever, or maybe even just someone who's really knowledgeable in that unit that is giving some kind of class to help make you a better NCO. Maybe it's a class on how to write better countdowns, maybe it's a class on how to be a better leader to your soldiers, whatever. It should be not something like a first aid class or class on using radios, but a class on just being a better NCO.
Oh, by the Jeep, the green Jeep.
Classes, sometimes it's all day,
green
sometimes
Jeep.
it's half the day, maybe it's a few hours. Officers even do this too. Officers can do this, OPD, whatever. So officers even do this too. So NCOs have their own class, officers have their own kind of time where they're using this to, you know, be better leaders and everything like that. So NCO PD is something you will probably do as a sergeant or should be doing to make you a better NCO so that way you can better mentor your soldiers. If you want to try to get your sergeant as fast as possible, that video kind of breaks that down. If you want to see that, I got it right here available for you to check out. If you want to see my latest video upload and you haven't seen it, right here. Links as always down in the description box. Follow me on Instagram, join the Discord channel, check out all the other awesome links that are down there. Give it a quick look. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Christopher Chaos, and I'll see you next time.
Man, come on, Bang. The fuck is that, man? You see me grabbing the letter.
Even with my mom's Alzheimer's,
You ain't see no red here. Throw when you see red, you fuckhead.
When it happened with dementia due to Alzheimer's disease, a distance came between us. She'd get upset when I tried to...
Oh, grenade!
Wandering, even started swearing. She got agitated often, so we talked to her doctor. Rexulti is the only FDA-approved medication proven to reduce agitation symptoms that may happen with dementia due to Alzheimer's disease. Elderly people with...
Oh, come on, man.
Boy,
oh, I was holding on it.
Come on. Rotating the breed.
Securing B. TACOM, launch counter UAV. Ion, switching UAV task.
Front door.
Bravo is ours. West one requesting CUAV. Losing Bravo.
Fucker.
TACOM, give me a UAV.
Yeah, baby.
Losing B.
Come on, man. Get to that target.
Concussion grenade out. Commence counter UAV operations. TACOM, get a UAV.
Damn it. Fuck.
Ion, requesting UAV tasking. Get a CUAV on station above. West point requesting UAV.
Come on, man.
Losing Bravo.
It was out my sight.
Losing B.
Man.
Losing Bravo. Hostile UAV established overhead.
Fuck is that, man? Fucking froze, man.